Sis, I know what it feels like to be the strong one who's silently screaming, to be applauded for holding it together when inside everything feels like it's falling apart. This message is for the woman who keeps showing up with a smile, but the fire in her soul has dimmed. The one who's tired of pretending she's okay, exhausted from trying to figure out what's next while everyone else seems to be moving forward. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not behind, you're stuck, and that's a real place. A place where dreams feel distant and clarity feels like a stranger. But I need you to know, being stuck doesn't mean you're finished. Sometimes it's the pause before the breakthrough, the silence before the shift. This isn't your forever. This is just a chapter, and baby girl, you weren't created to live in limbo. You were born to rise, even if you've got to crawl before you walk again. So, if your heart's been heavy and your faith has felt fragile, lean in. Because today, we're shaking loose from stuck and walking boldly into what's next. Your freedom starts now. Being stuck is not the end, it's the beginning of transformation. It doesn't feel like that when you're in it, though. When you're stuck, everything feels heavy, time feels slower. You start to question your worth, your choices, and sometimes even your faith. It's like the walls are closing in, but no one around you seems to notice you're suffocating. You pray, but the answers don't come in the way you expect. You try to push forward, but the weight inside makes even the smallest step feel like a mountain. And in that place, it's easy to believe the lie that your story has stalled. But sis, what feels like a delay is often divine preparation. There is something sacred about stuck, that uncomfortable space between what was and what will be. Because in that stillness, in that silence, God starts to rearrange the pieces you didn't even know were broken. He starts pulling you away from what distracted you, what drained you, and what distorted your vision. And though it feels like nothing is moving, something is shifting. Transformation is never obvious in the beginning. It's quiet, it's slow, it's unseen, like a seed planted underground. It looks like nothing is happening. But under the surface, something powerful is taking root. Too many women think stuck means failure. But stuck can be a holy pause, a place where your strength is rebuilt, where your identity is redefined, where your intimacy with God goes deeper. It's not the kind of growth that posts well on social media, but it's the kind of growth that sustains you when the storms come. You begin to understand that not every door is supposed to open, and not every path is supposed to be walked. You realize that the detours in life aren't signs of destruction, they are signs of divine direction. And when you finally do begin to move again, it won't be from desperation. It'll be from clarity, from peace, from knowing who you are and whose you are. Stuck was never about keeping you still. It was about anchoring you in truth before you stepped into the next season. You had to lose some things in the silence. You had to outgrow some places. You had to let go of who you used to be so you could embrace who you're becoming. You didn't get stuck because you were weak, you got stuck because God was strong enough to hold you in place until the right door opened. In that moment, the one where it all starts to make sense, where the light finally breaks through the cracks, that moment doesn't come in spite of the stuck. It comes because of it. God can use your confusion, your heartbreak, and your silence as a setup for your elevation. There's a unique kind of weight that settles on your soul when you're confused about where your life is going. It doesn't always come from a single moment or major crisis. It sneaks in little by little, through unanswered prayers, closed doors, and that silent space between what you hoped for and what actually happened. You look around and wonder why things seem to work out for everyone else. You ask, did I miss something? Did I take the wrong path? Did I fail? And it gets quiet, that kind of quiet that makes you second guess your purpose. That kind of quiet that makes you feel abandoned even in the presence of people. But that silence isn't absence, it's alignment. That heartbreak isn't punishment, it's pruning. And that confusion, That isn't chaos, it's the beginning of clarity. God doesn't need everything in your life to be perfect to elevate you. In fact, He often does His best work in the mess. The confusion you're walking through isn't proof that you're lost. Sometimes it's proof that you're no longer willing to live in places that don't align with your calling. And that's not confusion, that's growth. It feels messy because God is shaking the pieces loose. He's removing what can't go with you, and that includes people, plans, and parts of yourself that you've outgrown. Heartbreak has a way of breaking things open that you didn't even know were locked. It reveals truths we tried to ignore and exposes wounds we covered with distractions and busyness, and while it hurts, God can take that very pain and use it as the soil for your rising. Your heartbreak didn't catch heaven off guard. What broke you didn't break His plans for you. If anything, it positioned you. It woke you up. It pulled you back to the feet of the one who never leaves, never lies, and never stops believing in who you really are. And that silence, the one you're so frustrated by, the one that makes you think your prayers are hitting the ceiling, that silence is sacred. That's the moment where your faith becomes more than a performance. That's where your relationship with God gets real, when the answers don't come quickly, when the path isn't obvious. That's where you learn to trust His heart when you can't trace His hand. The silence trains your ear to hear the whisper. The whisper that says, "Daughter, I still see you. I'm still writing your story. I haven't forgotten a single tear." Sometimes elevation starts in the most unexpected places. It starts when everything falls apart and you're left with nothing but your breath and your belief. It starts when you're empty, because that's when God can finally fill you with His vision instead of your own expectations. You keep looking for evidence that things are changing, but the biggest shift is happening inside of you. Your thoughts are shifting, your discernment is sharpening, your spirit is getting stronger, and elevation doesn't always look like platforms and promotions. Sometimes it looks like peace where there used to be anxiety. It looks like boundaries where there used to be people pleasing. It looks like choosing yourself finally without guilt. It looks like realizing you're worthy without needing anyone else to validate it. It looks like walking away from what no longer feeds you and stepping into what fuels you, even if it doesn't make sense to others. God has a way of using every fragment of your story, the chapters you hide, the mistakes you regret, the pain you wish you could forget. None of it is wasted. You may feel broken, but He sees becoming. You may feel confused, but He sees called. You may feel forgotten, but He sees favored. That detour you didn't understand, that closed door you cried over, that silence you couldn't escape, all of it is a setup, a divine arrangement to elevate you, not just in position, but in purpose, not just in success, but in substance. You're being stretched, not punished. You're being prepared, not overlooked. And if it feels like you're surrounded by rubble right now, just know He's building something in you that can't be shaken. Something that doesn't depend on applause or approval. Something rooted in grace, anchored in truth, and fueled by the Spirit. You don't need to fix everything right now. You don't need to understand everything right now. What you need to do is keep showing up, keep praying, keep healing, keep trusting that even this, especially this, is part of the story, because your elevation isn't coming despite the pain, it's coming through it. And when it arrives, you'll look back and say, that heartbreak taught me, that confusion refined me, that silence healed me, and that God, He never left me. You don't need to have it all figured out to move. Obedience in uncertainty is powerful. We live in a world that glorifies certainty. The perfect plan, the 5-year vision, the map, tout goals with timelines and to-do lists. And while planning has its place, the truth is life doesn't always follow our script. God often calls us in the middle of the unknown. In the middle of our confusion, in the middle of I don't know what I'm doing. And that's where faith begins, not when we have all the answers, but when we're willing to move even when we don't. Sis, you've been waiting on clarity to give you permission, but clarity isn't always the first gift. Sometimes clarity comes after the step. God doesn't always give you the whole staircase. He gives you a whisper, a nudge, an uncomfortable stirring that tells you it's time, and we resist it, don't we? We think we need more money, more confidence, more support, more experience. But what if what you really need is the courage to take the first step? Unsure, you don't need to know how it will all unfold. You just need to trust that if God called you to it, He'll walk you through it. And walking through it doesn't mean you won't stumble. It doesn't mean it'll be easy. It means that with every step you take in obedience, even shaky, tearful, hesitant steps, heaven is backing you. Some of the most powerful moves you'll ever make won't come with a guarantee. They'll come with a choice to believe that what you feel deep in your spirit is more real than what you see with your natural eyes. A choice to move in the direction of faith, even when fear is shouting in the background. A choice to show up as the woman God called you to be, not the woman your past tried to define. You've been stuck in analysis paralysis, waiting to feel ready. But what if ready isn't a feeling? What if ready is a decision to trust God more than your comfort zone, a decision to trust purpose more than perfection, a decision to move not because everything makes sense, but because you refuse to stay in a place that no longer serves your soul. God doesn't expect you to be fearless, but He does want you to be faithful. He's not asking you to have it all figured out. He's asking you to believe that He already does. And when you obey in uncertainty, you release heaven's strategy into your life. You say, Lord, I don't know what's next, but I know you are already there. That kind of trust shifts things. That kind of obedience opens doors no degree or connection ever could. Think about how many moments in your life you delayed because you didn't feel qualified. Think about how many times you said, I'll start when I'm sure. Sis, if you keep waiting on certainty, you'll miss your assignment, because God rarely calls the qualified, He qualifies the called. You're trying to bring logic into something God designed to be led by the Spirit. And the Spirit doesn't always move logically. He moves with purpose, with timing, with wisdom that goes beyond what we can understand. Some of the greatest breakthroughs are born in motion. They happen while you're walking. You don't need the entire map. You just need the next step, and the next one after that. And yes, there might be detours. Yes, there will be moments where you question everything. But as long as you keep listening, as long as you stay connected to the one who sent you, you will not be lost. There's a special kind of strength in the woman who moves with no applause, no confirmation, no blueprint, just a quiet confidence that she is led, a deep knowing that she's not walking alone. That's the woman who sees change. That's the woman who shifts atmospheres. That's the woman who builds legacy. You don't need to have it all figured out to start the business. You don't need to have it all figured out to leave the toxic relationship. You don't need to have it all figured out to go back to school, to heal, to forgive, to walk away from what drained you. You just need to believe that you were made for more and act like it. Obedience isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper that says, go. Sometimes it's packing up your things without knowing where you'll land. Sometimes it's walking away with nothing but faith in your back pocket. But that's where God meets you, in the movement, in the stretch, in the surrender. So if you're waiting on certainty, let this be your confirmation. You were never called to live small just because the details aren't clear. You were called to move, to trust, to step, even when the path is foggy. Because when you obey without all the answers, you tell heaven, I trust you more than I trust me. And that, woman of God, is where power begins. Your past may explain you, but it does not define your destiny. Your past may have shaped parts of your story, but it doesn't get to write the ending. Too many women are living in the shadows of yesterday, believing the lie that what happened before is the ceiling on what can happen next. But let me tell you something, what you've been through may explain why you walk with a limp, why you hesitate to trust, why you doubt yourself sometimes. But it does not define the woman you're becoming. Your past may have left bruises, but it didn't take your brilliance. It may have introduced pain, but it didn't cancel your promise. Life has a way of trying to convince you that you're no longer worthy because of what you've experienced. Whether it was a mistake you made, trauma that happened to you, or a chapter that didn't end the way you wanted, the enemy will try to use those things to trap you in shame. But shame is a liar, and regret is not your ruler. You are not your divorce. You are not the abortion. You are not the addiction. You are not the failure, the breakdown, the betrayal, or the loss. You are not what they did to you, and you are not who you used to be. You are a whole woman, loved by God, seen by heaven, covered by grace, and just because your past happened doesn't mean it has the authority to own you. You don't have to shrink every time someone brings up what used to be. You don't have to keep replaying scenes from your brokenness when God has already started writing beauty in their place. Sis, if God wanted your past to be the final word, He would have stopped your breath right there. But the fact that you're still here, still breathing, still standing, still healing is proof that there's more. Your survival was not by accident. It was an announcement, a declaration that purpose is still alive in you, even if the world tried to bury it under guilt and grief. We don't run from our past to deny it. We walk through it with God to redeem it. Every tear you cried, every time you thought you wouldn't make it, He saw it. And not only did He see it, He kept record of it. Not to condemn you, but to remind you that nothing you've been through will be wasted. He will use it. He will weave it. He will turn it into a testimony that sets someone else free. You don't have to carry the weight of your past into your future. That shame isn't yours anymore. That voice that keeps whispering you're not good enough. You're damaged. You've missed your chance. That's not God. That's fear trying to hold you hostage. But grace is here to break those chains. Grace is the bridge between who you were and who you're becoming. And baby girl, that bridge is strong enough to carry you. Some people won't let you forget your past, not because you're stuck there, but because they are. Don't let their limited memory of you become your internal narrative. You've grown, you've changed, you've done the work, you're doing the work, and you have every right to outgrow who you were. You don't owe anyone an explanation for becoming whole. You don't have to justify your healing or apologize for moving forward. Let them talk, let them speculate, but you keep walking. God is in the business of rewriting stories. He specializes in redemption, and He's not intimidated by your baggage. In fact, He can turn that very thing you're ashamed of into the stage where His glory shines brightest. Your history does not disqualify you, it deepens your testimony. It doesn't make you less valuable, it makes you more real, more relatable, more relevant to the woman who thinks she's too far gone. You're proof that it's never too late. You don't have to keep rehearsing your failures. You don't have to keep defining yourself by your lowest moments. The you who existed in that pain is not the only version of you that gets to exist. There is a version of you that walks in power, in peace, in purpose, and you don't have to wait to meet her. She's already inside you. She's just waiting on you to release the shame and embrace the grace. So don't let your past trap you. Let it teach you. Let it inform your wisdom, shape your compassion, guide your boundaries, but do not let it become the glass ceiling to your future. God doesn't consult your history to determine your destiny. He already saw the whole picture. He knew what would break you and still decided to build you. He knew what you'd lose and still called you chosen. You may have chapters behind you that you wish you could rewrite, but hear me, the pen is still in God's hand. And the next chapter is still being written, and what's coming, it doesn't look like where you've been. It looks like healing. It looks like freedom. It looks like you fully becoming unapologetically and unashamed. You are still called, still chosen, and still deeply loved even in the waiting. There's something about waiting that can make you question everything. It stretches you, it tests you, it reveals parts of you that you thought were long gone. And when you're in it, truly in it, it can feel like time is standing still while everyone else's life is moving forward. You see the engagements, the promotions, the launches, the celebrations, and you smile, but there's a silent ache underneath. You start wondering, God, did you forget about me? But let me remind you, waiting is not abandonment. It is not punishment. It is not delay without purpose. Sometimes the wait is the proving ground. It's where faith matures. It's where trust becomes more than a word you sing in church. It's where God prepares you for what you prayed for, because He's not just trying to give you the blessing, He's shaping you to carry it without it crushing you. You're still called, even when nothing is happening. You're still chosen, even when you feel overlooked. You're still loved, even when you feel invisible. Heaven hasn't changed its mind about you. So many women confuse waiting with wasting, but they are not the same. You are not wasting time because things haven't moved the way you expected. In fact, some of the most powerful development happens when no one is watching. That season where you feel hidden, that's where roots are growing. That's where your character is being strengthened. That's where your discernment is being refined. God will often do deep work in private before He releases you in public. It's easy to feel confident when everything is happening fast. But what about when it's slow? What about when the door stays shut? What about when you hear not yet more than yes? That's when your identity gets tested. That's when the enemy whispers, you're behind, you're forgotten, you're not enough. But just because the manifestation hasn't shown up yet doesn't mean the calling has disappeared. You are not less chosen because the answer hasn't come. You are not less anointed because the platform hasn't appeared. You are not less powerful because you're still in process. You are right where God is molding you, and let's be honest, the waiting is uncomfortable. It makes you wrestle with surrender. It makes you ask hard questions. It makes you want to control things you were never meant to carry. But in that place, when you finally lay it all down and say, God, I trust your timing more than I trust my own, something shifts. That's where peace lives, not in having everything figured out, but in knowing the one who already has. Your calling is not tied to your pace. It's tied to your purpose, and purpose isn't rushed. It's revealed. Layer by layer, moment by moment, through both the movement and the stillness. Some of the greatest women in Scripture had to wait. Sarah waited, Hannah waited, Ruth waited, Mary waited, and not one of them was forgotten in the waiting. They were formed in it. You're in good company, sis. Sometimes the waiting season reveals what you're holding onto more than Him, the relationship you're trying to force, the plan you're trying to control, the timeline you're worshiping. And God, in His mercy, will let it all fall apart, not to hurt you, but to make sure your foundation is built on Him alone. He loves you too much to rush what requires refinement. You think your life should look a certain way by now. You think you're behind, but hear me, you are not late, you are not lacking, you are not lost. You are in the middle of becoming, and becoming takes time. Becoming takes patience. Becoming takes trust. You are still His even when the fruit hasn't shown yet, even when the followers are few, even when the doors haven't opened. You are still His, and His love, it's not seasonal, it's not conditional. It doesn't increase with your productivity or decrease with your delay. His love is steady, constant, relentless. It holds you in the waiting. It sees the parts of you that are tired and still says, I choose you. That love isn't waiting until you get it together to bless you. It's already covering you in the process. So don't despise the waiting. Don't let impatience rob you of what God is building. Don't let comparison make you miss the beauty of your journey. What He's doing in you will be worth the time it's taking. You're not just waiting for something, you're waiting with someone, and he is faithful, he is intentional, he finishes what he starts. And when that day comes, when the door opens, when the answer comes, when the promise is fulfilled, it won't feel random. It'll feel right, because you'll know you didn't get there by accident. You got there with God, and that makes all the difference.